Hey guys, welcome to another episode. Today is finally the day that we got the crankshaft and my connecting rods on my pistons machined, so it's all good to go. If you didn't watch the last video where we visited another Fiat garage, I had mentioned that I had sent out the crankshaft and those connecting rods to get machined, just because when I was doing a starter repair, it just didn't sound right. As I was turning the engine, you could hear some rod knock, for lack of a better explanation. And you know, it didn't feel right, and when it doesn't feel right, just stop and check. So that's what I did, and I'm really glad I did, because I've got one of the bearings here to show you. So a normal bearing is supposed to be pretty square, even, nice and clean, and this is, I'm glad I stopped. So this is what happened to it. See, it kind of mushroomed out here. Same on this side, it started to mushroom out here. And you can see just how much scoring and damage was there. So I'm really glad I stopped, and this is just from using the starter. This isn't from running it, this is just from using the starter to turn it over. So that shows you how much slack was in there, and these bearings were way more worn than I thought. So learn from my mistake, replace your bearings, don't be cheap, just replace them. So I had the machine shop machine the crankshaft down. I've got it here. Nice and clean, nice and machined. I did 10 and 10 on the main bearing journals and the piston journals where they travel. They did .010. That's a 10-10 on both of them. And so I made sure I got bearings for the main and for the connecting rods all new. They're all 10 over, 10 under, 10 over. However you measure it, these are the right ones that fit. They're .010 inches thicker to make up for the ground 010 off on the crank. So I have the engine completely taken apart. That's what's, pick y'all up here. I've got it here on my sawhorses because I don't have an engine stand. And I've got all the pieces spread out here on the bench underneath you guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this thing back together. I'm just gonna do a time lapse for you guys. I'll do my best to get everything I can in the shot, but no promises. I'm just gonna reassemble this engine real quick. At least quick for you guys, not so quick for me. And then we can finally get started. So let me get set up and get y'all in a better position, and then we'll knock this thing out. Alright, so I've got all the bearings in on the bottoms of the pistons. I've got all of the crankshaft bearings in. I cleaned off the crankshaft. It came from the shop with like its own coating to protect it from rusting, like flash rusting. So I went inside, I used some warm water and just regular dish soap and a rag, non-abrasive, something very soft, just to wipe it down, get all the loose dust and the coating on there. And I waited till right before we're about to put it in to do that. That way we don't have any flash rusting, so I'm going to hustle and put these in here. We're just going to put the caps on there, just kind of hold it in place for now. And then we'll go around with our torque wrench, which is right behind me on this little cart, and we'll torque it down. So I've got them on the side, so I think I'm going to go with the center cap first, just to kind of hold it in place. I might just, you know what, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to take the push rods out, just keep them in order. That's 4 in order, front to back. Alright, so I've got those in order, I've got the caps on the bench ready to go. We're just going to run them in with the impact just to hold them. We're not going to torque it or anything, and then we'll torque it on there. So let me flip this. Those pistons shouldn't go anywhere, but just in case, we'll keep it on the board. I know this is an ideal setup, I need to get a stand, but gotta work with what you got. So I'm gonna get my gloves on here, because I'm gonna be washing my hands a million times if I don't. Alright. The other good thing about this crank is he also machined the rear main here. And that's really nice because he said it had a little scoring in it. So when we go to put the rear main seal on, we'll make sure to lubricate that. Put this in there kind of sideways so we can try and clear everything. That way we don't hit any pistons. Awesome. So that's in there. I'm going to throw a little bit of this assembly lube on there and I'll spin it around. You could also use like 60 weight oil. That'd probably be good. You put it on all of them. Don't be afraid to use more than you think. This will come out in the first oil change, so I'm not too worried about it. I've already pre-lubed all the bearings on the back sides, the front sides, under the cap. Cleaned all the mating surfaces. So you can see I've already got the the assembly lube on there, and the mating surfaces I wiped off with a lint-free towel. And we're just going to set this on there. Let's spin this. All right. Just putting that on there just to hold it. And this is our front. Sorry, I'm blocking you guys. Here you go. And there's lube on both sides. Oh, this is our back, not our front. So I've got my center one backwards on accident. Set that there. No, that's right. Okay. Thought I'm going crazy. Got a little 10mm nut on here to hold this pickup tube. Not pickup tube. I'm losing all sorts of my words today, aren't I? I don't drop the bolts everywhere. And again, you can see I've got the assembly lube on there. Generous with it. Get that gasket on there. Kind of put these all on by hand. And then we're going to go around and torque them to, the book says 44.8 foot-pounds, but I'm just going to go to 45 to be safe. But I'm going to go little by little. I'll go 20, then 30, then 45 probably, to be safe. I might have to move that to torque that one. So I'm going to do that, 48 foot-pounds, 45 foot-pounds on these. I'm going to torque these down. I'll bring it all back and I'll show you how to do the caps on your connecting rods, and then we'll keep going. Alright, so you saw we got all these torqued down to spec, all of the crankshaft caps. So what I'm going to do next is I've got the connecting rod caps on there, just hand tight. I just took the impact until I felt a tad of resistance, just a touch of resistance. That way it's on there so I can turn it to torque them as I go. So these ask for, let me double check, I think it's 25. Yeah, 25.3 is what it asks for your torque spec on your connecting rod caps. So we're going to do those progressive also. So we're going to do 15 on the first one around, and then we'll go around with 25. And then in theory, once they're all torqued, we should be able to rotate this over by hand with no drag. Well, I don't want to say no drag, minimal drag. And that means all of our bearings are the right size and everything. So let's get these torqued, and then we can talk about that when we get there. So let's knock this out. Alright, so some of you may know, but I'm actually a part of the XWeb forums where we can share any struggles we have, any questions we have, and it's mainly for X19s, Fiat X19s, Bertoni X19s, but there is a section for rear engine Fiats like ours where people can ask about the 850 and like the 600 and the 500 and things like that. And so one of the questions that came up is the chain orientation and how all this lines up. And so I said I would make a video, and so I'm going to include it in this one since we're already here to show you how all this lines up. Because remember, our engine turns counterclockwise, just like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting some things on and try and squeeze between you, the car, and the engine here. So the first thing we have on is our little spacer here. And then we put in our key. Mine's a little mangled, but that's alright. It covers all of it. So we put our key in. It's like that. Then we're going to put in our crankshaft gear. Now, I've had this soaking in oil for probably 3 or 4 days because I put a new rubber piece in the middle there. You can see that black stripe. My old one, I threw it out. I should have kept it, but it had super deep grooves in there, And so what happened is my outer case, had deep grooves in it. You can kind of see those grooves there from the chain being too slack and digging into the cover. So I replaced that piece. It was $4 from Midwest Bayless, effortless. It went on just one tooth at a time. You kind of have to use a little flathead screwdriver to get it in there. But I let it soak in oil to make sure that there's lots of oil underneath that, and it really gets in there and soaks in. It's typically pretty good if you heat up the oil a little bit and then heat up this, and then you put it in to really soak it up. But I just don't have that capacity. So I'm going to be putting on this. Here's our timing mark. This little notch. Does it show up in the camera? See a little notch right there? That is our timing mark. So we're going to put this on. And a good thing to use is probably like a bigger socket to help lightly tap that in, which I'm going to do. I've got, is this going to be big enough? Yes. So this is a 1 1/4 inch socket. This is what we also use for the front. If I don't throw it all over the place, this is what we use for the front nut. So I'm just going to lightly tap this in. Make sure we line up with our key. I need to stand up a little bit for this, get some better leverage here. So you can see I'm getting even pressure. That's why I'm using a bigger socket to evenly tap it across. The back of that key is popping up on us. So I'm going to take this, see if I can tap it down just a little bit. See if that'll help us out. That key is fighting us. Let me get a better angle, that's all. And of course, that's just barely too big. Oh, maybe that'll help. Here we go. There we go. I had to seat that key in there. Sometimes it may lock on you like that a little bit, but we're in, so that's what matters. And we're getting there. And my socket is not deep enough. So, I think I might have a little bit smaller but deeper socket. Maybe something like this. This is a 26. No, not. Maybe? Oh, yeah. Like a perfect fit. And that's big on the back there. So, we've got it all the way back. Pretty solid sound. And it's on there, and our key is all the way seated. So that means the next thing is going to be our cam gear with the chain. So I've got my cam gear over here on the side on my little work rolling cabinet. Pick it up here. So there's 2 holes on our cam gear, just like that. One is bigger, one is smaller. The smaller hole keeps the locking tab, that tab in the hole to keep it from moving along with bending over the washer. So it's kind of hard to tell from the camera, but this one on the bottom is bigger, just slightly. So let me grab the chain. And the chain I've also had in oil for the past several days, really, because I got this from Midwest Bayless, $22. They sent it to me a couple days it got here. And now the problem with the orientation is you can see these teeth that are up here. It says a courtesy reminder that you have it backwards, if you do have it backwards, right? Because the question is, do you have it like this, or do you have it like this? Right, so if we're turning this way, that means that the chain is going this way, right? Just like that. So the teeth need to face you. As you're facing the engine, that's how it needs to face you, because the engine's going to turn this way. And that'll keep those teeth nice and seated. Because if you put it backwards, those teeth will fly up like that. See that one on the bottom that just automatically fell out? And that's going to scrape your whole your cover, your outside casing. So there's really like a lot of ways you can do this. Kind of do like one, walk it on, and then try and seat it. There's no like magical way to get it on there. So my cam could very well be in the wrong position too, so I'll have to get that figured out, get them in line. Because what you're going to want is this mark that I showed you earlier on the crank gear is going to match up with this little dot right there. So when they're in there, they're going to face each other perfectly like that. So that means our big dot needs to move this way a little bit more. So I don't know if I can get it, because if I turn it counterclockwise, it's going to loosen it, right? So let's see if I can. I just have to use the gear to turn it and take the chain off. So it's something like this, so you just kind of figure it out. Whatever works for you. See, I can turn it like that, try and get it lined up if I went too far. So like that is in time. So I know the crank is in, or the camshaft is in the right position. Reattach our chain, which is so nice and oily. That's why I left it in the oil for several days, to really get in there in all those crevices. That way on our first startup, we don't have to worry about having to wait to build oil pressure and potentially damaging it. So when you go to put this on, you may have to like move a tooth at a time to get the angle right, like I'm having to do. Hopefully I'm not blocking you too much. Just one tooth at a time. And it's going to be super tight. So, yeah, it's going to be pretty close. So I'm going to fight with this and get this in there. And then we're going to keep going. Hopefully that helps whoever was having that question, because you see the teeth just stay folded down as it turns this way. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to turn y'all off real quick, fight this, get this set up, and bring y'all back and start putting covers on and put the head on and stuff like that, so that we can keep moving. Alright, so I'm going to put our cover on. This is our centrifugal oil filter. My other one, this is a different one than in previous videos, but this one is different because the other one, when it was on there and I was messing with the starter, it had some front like this kind of thing going on. So I made sure this is fully seated. It's all the way in there. I've got a new front seal on the back here, and I made sure to lubricate that seal with oil before I put this on. That way we don't have rubber burning on the metal as we do our first startup before the oil can really build pressure and get there. So I'm going to put this front cover on. That nut is on there. I mean, I got that on there tight. So I'm going to put this cover on, and I'm going to start putting this in the engine bay behind us while it doesn't have the head on it, just because it'll be a lot easier to pick up in the state that it's in versus getting the head on it and all that stuff and adding all that extra weight trying to balance it on a jack. And I'm not really interested in that, so I'm just going to torque these on to like 12 foot-pounds, I think, maybe 15 if that, just because they are 10mm bolts. They don't have a very high torque rating, so I'm just going to knock these out, zip them on there, and then we'll get this on the jack and in the car, and I'll finally get y'all in a new position. So Give me a second. Alright, so I skipped ahead a little bit and I attached a bunch of the electrical stuff. It's not super exciting. I got a distributor in kind of the right place. So all the important wires are hooked up. I have my little lone wolf switch here. And we're going to give it a try to spin it over. There is oil in it. I did fill it up with oil. Check on the dipstick. We are good on oil. And I put in some coolant up to the point where it started coming out of the bottom of the water pump on the bottom side. That's supposed to go to the radiator. So it's as full in there as it's going to get. Everything is hooked up. I'm going to turn the key on and I'm going to pump some fuel into the carburetor. Got to tighten down this. First, because we're going to fuel everywhere. So we're going to turn on the key, that way I can fill up the bowl in here, and maybe we can run on just that. And double check all these. I did go to a metal fuel filter. I know a lot of people in the last video, or one of the videos where I did the fuel lines and things like that, on here said make sure you go to a metal filter, not the plastic ones, because the plastic one will melt. So, you know what, let me finish. Oh, your battery's flashing. Let me change you out and I'll be right back. Alright, so those are all tightened up. I got you all fresh batteries. So, I'm going to turn on the key. Key is on. We should have power to our coil, and the way we know that is our fuel pump is hooked up to our coil. So we have power to our coil, which is good. And we'll take a look in here. Nothing yet. Almost, you can start to hear it. Oh, our float's stuck. We're getting gas pouring out the top. This happened the last time we were trying to fill it up, remember? Our float just got stuck from sitting. Alright. Soak most of that up. Alright. Our float fixture 3000. Let's try it again. There we go. So we are full. We have, all right, we've got that. Key is on.